Hello everyone, my name is Anya Hawkins, welcome to my channel. Today I will show you how to do a crochet cast on. First I will tell you a little about this cast on, about its characteristics, why and when I like to use it, and I will show you some examples of things that I made with it, so you can see for yourself how it looks and behaves in different situations. Then I will walk you through the process itself, and I will show you a trick that I use for counting stitches when I need to cast on a large amount of them, and in the end I will show you how to finish casting on for flat knitting or how to join everything neatly in the round. Feel free to skip ahead using chapters navigation if you're interested only in actual instructions or some particular part of the instructions. Also, I'm a continental knitter and I will demonstrate techniques in that way. I like to use crochet cast on, and I do use it almost exclusively in all of my projects. Very rarely I will choose a different method, because this one literally ticks all of my boxes, which are matching edges, all of them, stretchiness, but at the same time stability, and finally no guessing how much yarn it would take to cast on. Let's see some examples. This all-over seed stitch scarf will help me demonstrate my first point. If you look at the cast on edge like that, you can see that it is basically vertical column of knit stitches. I use traditional bind-off method and my edges look almost identical. I slip my selvage stitches every other row, and now they are also pretty good match to other edges. All four edges of this scarf look very similar. These gloves will help me demonstrate my second point about stretchiness. I have relatively thin wrists and I like a tight fit in my cuffs. I used crochet cast on method, and when I put them on I don't feel any resistance whatsoever. This edge has the same amount of stretch as the rib itself. Of course it will not stretch to the absolute maximum that you can get from ribbon, but in the most cases it is not necessary to get the fabric so stretched out. The only exception I can think of is cuff down socks, especially if your heel diagonal is much bigger than ankle circumference. In that case, you should choose a cast on method that is even more stretchy. These gloves can also illustrate my second point about stability. If you look at the cuffs like that, you can see that the cast on edge follows the path of the ribbon when it's relaxed, and though I wore these gloves for several seasons, you actually can see some peeling is happening. The edge did not become stretched out and floppy at all. Every time I take them off, the edge compresses together with the ribbon and gets back to its original state. And you can see this effect in any type of ribbon. Here is a hat in a relatively thin yarn that starts with 2x2 ribbon, and you can see this edge looks very neat and nice with it. Here is 2x2 ribbon in a much thicker yarn, and again no unnecessary bulk is present, and the edge also looks very good. And here is an example of this cast on edge with 1x1 ribbon. It also looks very good. In this sweater you can see an example of crochet cast on with a twisted rib in a yarn that doesn't hold ribbon very well, but despite the wear that sweater have seen, the edge didn't become stretched out and floppy. The state of cast on matches relaxed state of ribbon and doesn't make it scrunched up at the bottom, it lays perfectly flat. And here is an example of a crochet cast on with a brioche project. For this scarf I deliberately choose two very different yarns. One is thick and fluffy and another is smooth and thin, and to avoid unnecessary bulk at the edge I cast on only in one color, in thin yarn, and crochet cast on is relaxed enough that it doesn't deform the edge of the scarf and at the same time adds much needed stability to the brioche fabric that is so stretchy that the edge can easily become wavy. As to my last point about no guessing how much yarn it would take to cast on, it really requires no explanation. The cast on is made right from the ball with a working yarn. Having said all that about all these advantages of this method, I admit that the process itself is not everyone's cup of tea. I personally like it. The knitters who are also crocheters probably will like it. As for everyone else, you never know until you try it, and I highly encourage you to do it, because who knows, maybe this method will become one of your favorites, as it did for me. And of course, as with everything, there is no single one method of casting on with a crochet hook. I will show you the way I do it. To cast on with a crochet hook, we will need yarn, needles of an appropriate size and type for your project. I will use circulars because they can be used for knitting in the round as well as for knitting flat. Crochet hook of the same size as your knitting needles, or if you know that you're a tight knitter, you can use a crochet hook of a slightly bigger size. And I would recommend you to have on hand a bunch of stitch markers. They are not necessary, but they will come in handy if you need to cast on a large amount of stitches. First, we need to make a slip knot. There are many ways to make one. I usually do it like that. I tension the yarn between my fingers, like I usually do when knitting, with the tail end on my thumb and working yarn on my forefinger, and I place a crochet hook on top of the yarn. I point it downward and bring it up from underneath towards me. That creates this sliding loop of yarn, and then I just grab my working yarn and pull it through this loop. This is our slip knot. Adjust it so it's not too loose and not too tight. It should slide around easily. Now to the actual cast on. Tension the yarn like you usually do when knitting, with your working yarn on your forefinger and the tail end on your thumb. Now take your knitting needle and place it on top of the yarn but under the hook. To give all this stability, hold your tail end against your knitting needle with your thumb. This is our working position. The actual cast on is 2 steps. First step is making a stitch. To make a stitch, grab the working yarn and pull it through this loop on your crochet hook. The stitch is done. Second step is to return to our working position. To do that, hold your newly done stitch, here it is, with your thumb and slide your hands to the point of the needle and allow the working yarn to jump off of the needle and get to the back again. Slide away from the point. This is basically it, the whole process that we will repeat until we have as many stitches as we need. Let's do it together slowly. Step 1, make a stitch. Grab the working yarn and pull it through the loop on your crochet hook. The stitch is done. Now return to the working position. Hold your newly done stitch with your thumb, slide everything to the point of the needle so the working yarn can jump off of the needle and get to the back again. Slide away from the point. Step 1, make a stitch. Step 2, return to the working position. We have here 10 stitches. Let's say I need to cast on 100 of them. To make it easier to count, I use markers. I put a marker on the needle after every 10 stitches. Those are quite thin and do not get in the way. I just hold the marker together with my last stitch and continue as before. Make a stitch, return to the working position. That way I need to count only until 10, then place the marker and start again from 1. Well, as you can see, though I recommend it, I don't actually hold my new stitch with my thumb. But that's because I'm so used to these movements that I don't need to anymore. My hands know exactly when to stop, so the yarn will jump off of the needle, but the stitch will stay in place. When doing it for the first time, better hold it down just in case. But if you accidentally drop your new stitch, it is very easy to fix. Let's say I accidentally dropped it. It will not unravel, but you will need to remove your hook from the last loop and undo it gently and pick up this loop that is just under your knitting needle. Make sure that your yarn is at the back and you can start again like nothing happened. Or let's say that I lost my count and made more stitches than I was intending. Then it is very easy to undo also. I just remove my hook and by pulling on the working yarn, I unravel my last stitch or several stitches, and I again can pick up this loop that is under the needle and return to my working position and continue as before. Now I know that I need to cast on another 10 stitches after my last marker, and then I will be done. I will have my 100 stitches on the needle. If I'm going to knit flat, I finish my cast on like that. My last stitch will be that one that is now on a crochet hook. I have 99 stitches on my needle, and stitch number 100 is this one. I just transfer it to the needle, remove my hook, and that's it. I can start knitting. The working yarn is right here, and it doesn't matter whether I start with a right side row or a wrong side row. The cast on looks the same from both sides. Now I will show you how to join this cast on for knitting in the round. I have 99 stitches on my needle. Let's say I need 100 stitches for my project, but to make a knit joint I will need one more additional stitch. I cast on my stitch number 100 as I usually do, and I return to working position, and only then I transfer this loop on the needle. I remove my crochet hook, and that additional stitch will disappear after I join my work in the round. First of all, distribute your stitches evenly on the needles and be careful not to twist stitches, so there is no places where it will go around the needle like that. The cast on edge is everywhere on the inside. See this tail of yarn? It's where my first stitch is. My working yarn comes out of the last stitch. Now take your first stitch and slip it onto the left needle. Now grab the last stitch. It is very stretchy and loose, that's okay. Pass it over your first stitch and drop it from the needle. Pull on the working yarn to tighten it as much as you can, and then slip your first stitch back to the right needle. Place the marker to mark beginning of the round and start knitting. Those other markers we no longer need, and we can remove them when we knit in first row or round. When you will come to this joint on the next round, you will see that there is no gap anywhere between the stitches. There is this little tiny knot. This is our slip knot that we made at the beginning, and when you will weave in this end at the end of this project, it will come to the inside and you no longer will be able to see even that. Well, that was it for this tutorial. I hope you find it useful. By the way, the 3 hats that helped me demonstrate how crochet cast on looks with different types of ribbon are Stellatus hat, Nivosa hat, and the Stellatus hat. Patterns for them are available for free in my Ravelry store. Also on my channel there are complete video tutorials for all 3 of them, as well as how to line a hat with a polyester fleece and a tutorial on how to make these pom-poms. All links are below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.